Stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sometimes.
I just have it in case I need it.
Right, a short agenda. The first item is the minutes from our last meeting. I have them in paper copy if anyone needs them.
Make a motion to accept the minutes from the meeting on December 6th as presented.
A motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Changes, corrections, additions, deletions? All set.
All set?
Stays here. The
You found it?
revised on the 7th, not yesterday.
No, I got them yesterday. Do you have any notes on that?
I have no comments.
Nope.
All
That's
set.
it.
All right, on the motion to accept the minutes from December 6th. Tony?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
And motion carries. All right. The next item is the committee's budget proposal for the next cycle, which is fiscal year 2020. I gave everybody a copy so they could see firsthand what is in 19, what the committee presented, proposed, asked for, and what we eventually got. And I sent I believe, did everyone get it? I sent a table with the my proposed numbers for 20.
Yes, I got it.
For the MMA annual meeting, the 4 at 500, I bumped it up some because I followed the number and the dollar figure and the number that the selectmen proposed. This doesn't mean, whatever numbers we submit does not mean we will get it, but I figured it's a starting point.
You looking for some inputs, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I mean, these are just,
Well, first of
most
all,
of them I took from last year.
Yep.
The pre-town meeting stuff was based off the price of the last price, and the number of meetings that we have had, which is, we've been to, so.
let me start off by saying that I looked at the budget to actual. We've got the annual, the Association Town Finance Committee. That was already gone by. It looks like we have not spent any money, or very little. I'm just wondering if it shouldn't be on the members, they should be getting a receipt and putting that in. Maybe I missed the meetings when the members brought those into the committee, because I didn't attend, so I don't know how many members actually attended. That was my first comment.
5. I
The,
think.
The next one would be for, under the purchase of services. We ended up in June, when the new members came on, we discussed the VADAR. At that time, people chose to take and end up having the license. Since that time, I haven't heard any discussions about people going in and looking at that. And I was opposed to doing that because right in the bylaws, it says that we should be asking for that information and it should be supplied either from the treasurer or the accountant. I mean, I don't like to spend the voters' money if we don't have to. That's $700 that could easily be spent somewhere else, and somewhere else I would end up saying that I would be more inclined to take and see that money go to a booklet to end up educating the individuals in the community rather than spending it on VADAR, which, I mean, I don't know if anybody's used it. Has anybody used it since June, since we talked about that one time?
I go in it and look and check on stuff. I don't use it as much as I would like to, but I do go in it. I believe Lee went into it.
I mean, you actually have asked the accountant directly, instead of going through VADAR, about some issues he just lately on spending some money for the truck and the difference between what was allocated and what was spent, et cetera. And you got the answer there versus having to go into VADAR. You probably wouldn't have got it out of VADAR.
Well, it is like a check, but
The other issue that I've always had, even with the administrator cutting it back last year, and looking at a lot of communities, we requested last year, based upon less than 1% of the budget, of $80,000 for the reserve fund. The reason I was one that was for that was that I started looking at other communities, and you have department heads come in and ask for that money. I went to a meeting just recently where a committee or commissioners could have come to us, or the person that worked for the town could have come to us to ask us for money, but was not allowed to. And I say not allowed to because the administrator has in the past, and he is still doing it, not letting them come to take and end up for unbudgeted, unforeseen items. I think that's a travesty.
Is it within his right to do that? Is it within his right as a town administrator to not allow someone to come ask us for money?
They should present it to him, and whether it's whether it's accepted by us and approved is one thing. He could come in and say, I don't think, I mean, he could come in and say, the department head has asked for this particular money, and I want to take and end up not having that money used in reserve. I mean, he's typically have not used the reserve fund for what it was intended. Unbudgeted, unforeseen.
Well, I mean, has he given a reason why he's not?
Not
they've
to us.
Come to us?
I mean, I don't know what he says to the department heads.
But if somebody doesn't come to us, it's like it never happened, even though they may have a bona fide need.
Yep.
If they don't actually come to us.
Well, we were aware last year of a number of ones that could have come to us, and they didn't.
And what did they end up?
They were stopped.
What did they end up doing?
It was shifted around budget-wise.
Historically, Jeff and Will, you may have the thing. How much of the emergency fund has been used year? I know the numbers have kind of fluctuated a little bit, but if you have a static 40,000, do you normally is it 50% a year, is it?
I would
In
say on average 50% or better,
In the
depending
last,
on what the instance is. One year, we used just about all of it.
in the last couple of years, we haven't used it much, and we have, probably since 16. We haven't used it much, if at all. In 16, we used money from it. There was over 60 transfers from different funds, departments. Some of it was back and forth, take from here, put it over here, and then go, oops, we gotta put some back.
It was closer to 75, Jeff.
I'd say
I
over
just
60.
wonder, is there any,
But we didn't use, so far, we
Trend.
have not used,
like over the last 5 or 6 years, can you average it to how much?
The last, like Jeff said, the last couple of years since we've had this administrator, he's the one that basically has told the department heads not to end up coming to the advisory for the reserve fund.
Well, okay, so there's information missing there, though. We don't know why he told them that, or did he say, you don't need to go to them, we'll fix it this way? So I don't want to say this administrator without knowing all the facts. I mean, because kind of the way it comes off is, well, he just doesn't want them to come to us, so they don't. But maybe he's figuring out another way within the rules of the town to find them the funding they need.
What's unbudgeted and unforeseen, and I'm aware, at least I am, of some instances last year where it was unbudgeted and unforeseen, right within the fire department. They didn't have enough money to take and end up doing some stuff, and also in the highway department, I believe. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you why he ended up telling them that, but if it's unbudgeted, unforeseen, you don't have to go look for the money somewhere else. That money can sit in that other budget and be used for whatever purpose, and don't have a shortfall, so that we end up like, in what is 17, but it was 17, right? Yeah, 17, which, over 70 transfers at the end of the year. I mean, that's
no, 16.
16? 16, okay.
Fiscal 16.
That's right, it was 16. I mean, that was mind-blowing to get that many transfers at the end of the year. You typically don't have that many, or you shouldn't have that many, if the budgeting was done correctly, and if you had unforeseen things that could have gone through another source, and they wouldn't have had to take and end up juggling money to take and end up making the end of the year.
But they're juggling money, but it's still all coming out of the town budget.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like we're having to, okay, we gotta go find $10,000 that we didn't budget for. It's still coming out of the town. So in the case of like the fire department, did they end up getting the funding they needed?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess I fail to see where it comes from. Is that an issue? And maybe it's just an education that I need, is whether it comes out of our reserve fund, or the town administrator finds it out of X, Y, or Z, I'm not
Well,
sure
you
why
have to
it
look at
matters.
why you have an emergency reserve. The emergency reserve is for any department that has nothing, if something comes up, it's not budgeted, and it was not foreseen, then they come to us, and they actually have to go to the selectmen also for them to approve it. So it's not just,
There has been, I'll give you one example of where the reserve fund wasn't used, and it's an example given in the Association of Town Finance Committees handbook as an appropriate use. The police chief had an accident with his cruiser. And so until you get the insurance check, you need money to get it repaired. They took money out of the selectman's office expense fund to pay for the repairs. What they had done at a town meeting had taken funds for OPEB, other post-employment benefits.
Yep.
They hadn't set up the fund yet to deposit that money, so they temporarily deposited it in the office expense fund. of the selectmen with the promise that it would not be touched. We got to town, so they used money to pay for the cruiser. We got to town meeting, just before town meeting, the budget to actual showed there wasn't enough money. The OPEB money was lower than what had been stuck in there because they had used some of it. When they got the insurance check, yes, it all untangled, it got put into the office expense fund of the selectmen, and there was enough money there, the $68,000 something dollars, to transfer into an OPEB fund. The cleaner way to do this, and the example given, is for that specific example, if you have an accident with a vehicle, you're waiting on an insurance check, use the reserve fund to cover those repairs.
Right.
The biggest thing about the reserve, to me, is not whether we use it or don't use it. The more, and we're in the process of trying to get a bond rating and to
Right.
borrow money with
That's-
interest rates going up.
Sure.
What's the easiest way to get money from a bank? Show them that you don't need it.
Yeah.
Or that you can have money set
Right.
aside to cover some emergencies.
No, I absolutely agree with that.
So instead, like I said, that's one reason we went for 80,000. And it was a jump from 35 to 80. But it works better for the town. Now, whether we use the fund or not, like I said, the bigger issue to
Right.
me is
A lot of towns will
the
use
better
it,
the reserve
I'm
is,
sorry,
the better our financial picture is perceived.
that's correct.
Because it's, if you look into borrowing and building a bond rating and doing this and that, you have good reserves. If the economy goes boom, you have something ordered, like we had a truck and it went up 3,000-4,000. If you have reserve money put aside,
Right.
it's not an emergency. You have the money. So whether we use the reserve or not, to me, as long as they don't try to do like, was done in the past, try to come get salaries from it.
right, you can't use it for
It's-
salaries.
If we have a good-sized reserve with regards or relationship or ratio to our budget is the more important issue to me.
So I absolutely agree with you 100% on the need for a reserve fund, and probably even a little bit bigger than what we're asking. What I don't know is, what is the process for a department head who has an unbudgeted, unfunded request to come to this body? Is there a
I
hierarchy
gave those
where
documents to you earlier this year on end of the year and.
I know
reserve
that, I know
fund.
about the end of the year, but what I mean is, as a department head, are they required to say, go to the town administrator and say, I have this shortfall? And is it his responsibility to say, okay, I can't fund this from within our current budget, we need to bring this to advisory committee to take it out of the reserve fund?
Are you
What's the process?
Are you asking if they need his permission, or at least advising him? Advising him is what you, in any management thing, is when you end up having an issue such as this, because I've had to do this in business, is you end up telling your management, here's what I have to do, I need some additional monies for this, and go before a committee for that. That's what they should be notifying him, saying why. I don't believe that he needs to take and end up stopping it, or needs to take and end up giving the approval. It really is up to the selectmen and the advisory committee to approve transfers end of the year and also reserve fund.
But it has to come to us first.
Right.
And I believe Tony is asking if there is a written procedure that says, do this, do that. I believe.
We do have a
Right.
written
I don't
procedure.
believe- Yes, as far as the paperwork and things.
Yep.
But I think Tony is questioning is, if they go to the administrator, is it the administrator's duty to say, is he required to say, okay, go to the advisory committee for the reserve fund? Or being charged with the day-to-day operations of the town and acting as the chief administrative officer, is it his duty, his job to say, okay, this is broke, how much is it gonna cost? And then look at that budget and then see if there are other ways to get the money.
I mean, I really
And
think a
I
reserve.
believe he's trying to maintain a reserve fund and not touch it, because if you're constantly going to the reserve fund, it looks
Right.
as if you have a very poor budget.
Well, that's what I was saying,
process.
this is kind of like a last resort, that he as a town administrator, if a department head comes, say, I have this shortfall because of X, Y, and Z, if he can solve the issue within his constraints, then that should be done that way. I mean, he's the town
Well,
administrator.
you're saying two things, because you're saying the department heads are responsible for their budget. If they have something
I didn't say that.
unbudgeted, unforeseen, to me, that gives them the leeway that they can end up coming to, for emergency reserve.
No, well, I agree with that, however, emergency reserve is to me, the last resort. The first thing they should be doing is going to the town administrator and saying, I have an issue with funding, can you solve this for me? And if he can't, then they would come to
Well,
us.
going from, taking money from OPEB, which is in the selectmen's budget, and paying for repairs on a vehicle for the police department
Okay, well,
is not the recommended process.
Okay, if I may,
Okay.
the process and the balance in it, we're trying to figure out how much money do we wanna propose for all these items. The first one being personnel, which would be, are we, any stipends for any, this comes up in the bylaw thing after this item.
The bylaw actually, just so
Right,
that
so-
everybody's
Right.
aware, it allows for the chairman to get a stipend.
Yes, and I
Right.
want my damn money.
We have
So-
not taken it.
Okay, how much do you want, Jeff?
My coffee fund needs to be replaced. It's winter time, so it's gonna be high. So for under personnel, in 19 it was 0, and I proposed 0 because, well, me personally, I don't want any money. So without stipends.
And
that's
13, the
just
town
0.
voted not to take and pay stipends beside.
So the next one would be the employee support, the fees for the annual ATFC conference.
How much were they this year? Was it 60?
Well,
1,250.
45 for new people, and 50 each for if you've been on a year or so.
Okay.
So I bumped it up a little bit, just in case they increase their fee, because you never know. So that would be $420 to cover the attendance fee, and it's different from the dues.
Mhm.
The regional meeting, which is held, I don't know, usually a few months after the annual,
Usually in the spring.
so that's 7 people. And if you go back, the actual,
It's been like $25
yeah,
historically.
we did 5, we have counted for 5 people, I just accounted for all members. The ATFC annual dues of $190. The mileage expense, if you wish to put that in. The MMA annual meeting, which a hotel room is, I think it's $185 per person. The meals, if you go to, they have dinner, breakfast is included. They have a dinner, I think it's an extra, well, I'm going by 14's prices, so I think it was $25 or so. Then if you go to lunch, you can leave Seafood and a couple other places are right there. When I went, I paid my whole way for everything. I do that for anything I go to. I don't bill, that, but that's just me. So it's 4 members at $500 each, which would cover your hotel for a couple days. My parking was, I think it was like $26 for a 24-hour period, because I didn't stay Saturday night. Whatever I got for meals, I forget what I spent, but,
Where do they normally hold that?
what's that?
Where is that normally held?
Boston?
The convention center, the Heinz Convention Center. There's 3 parking garages, like, right there, one underneath the center, which I would not go into again. And then there's 2 across the street. And the wreckers are like lined up like vultures to tow you. If you're a questionable place, they just haul you. And there's still time to register. If you register the day of, I think it goes from 185 to like 220 or something.
When is that?
January, like the 3rd week of January. right?
January 20, I want to say 25th, I think.
Something like that.
Something like that, 19,
Probably
20.
not going on my birthday.
Right.
So,
I know.
under employee support,
I really don't have a good reason
Um,
for it.
the conference, 420. The regional meeting at 210. The dues, 190, which allows us to get the handbook and all of that stuff and to go to the thing for free. And the mileage expense, the annual meeting, and just, again, we submit this, you can look on the Excel spreadsheet to see what, disallowed is what the town administrator determined, not to take away from your submissions, and then he puts it in front of the Board of Selectmen, and we'll be at the meeting when he presents that, and you can speak up and say, why'd you do that, this and that, so. So on this group, employee support, anybody add, subtract, take away? All right, under purchase of services, the pre-town hearing advertisement, I did 3. The last couple of years, we have only had an annual town meeting and a pre-town meeting. And when the Gardner News sold, it used to be 68, 67, 50, 68,
right, yeah.
something, per meeting, so that was 2 of them at $130 or something. But since they sold, I was shocked when I saw
Yeah.
it was cut in half. But I
I'm-
budgeted for 3.
I'm reluctant to see you put that much, because, I mean, it may be that amount this time, but with that newspaper, it may go back up again.
We can, well, if we have to, we can always transfer, if need be. We also have to wait to see the codification, because they may be going about something different. But anyways, I put in 3 at 35. I contacted the Gardner News, and it was correct, and it's how it's gonna be for right now. We did put in postage for booklets that Will had spoke about earlier. And we had talked about sending stuff out. We have money for printing at $750. The Vadar license for a year, $700. And that gives us a total of purchase of services of $2,080. I would just say with regards to the Vadar, just because we put it in here, if, when we get to town meeting or later when it comes time to renew that license, if the committee says, you know what, we really didn't use it much, or none of us go in there, if we don't wanna renew it, that money will sit there, and we'll go, to free cash at the end of the year, if it's not transferred out for something else. But I mean, just 'cause we budget for it, if we don't put it in there, then our hands are tied. I mean, we
Right.
could do a transfer out of the reserve fund ourselves as a committee of the whole, but, that's kind of a backwards process in my view. So, with regards to purchase of services, Will, I know you have an issue with the Vadar.
Yep.
That's unchanged since we decided to do it. But again, just because it's there, we have like in May to, when it comes time to renew, to vote then whether we actually spend the money or not. But if we don't put it, we can't spend it. we can't do it. So, under those amounts, those items, are there any issues? Oh, I couldn't have done that good. Under supplies, office supplies at 340. I'll tell you right now, when I print anything to bring to town, I mean, to this meeting or anything, any paper copies or anything, I do that right at home. I buy paper at wherever and printer ink and everything. I don't even come down and use the town hall one. But that's just me. Someone else is chair and has these responsibilities to do this, it may do it differently. But if we wanna print up something, like some kind of flyer or anything, the money is here. We could buy rubber stamps and stuff for everybody, but you all are a digital crowd, so I'd probably be the only one using that stuff.
It'd be fun. I'd use a rubber stamp if I had one.
Make a
Whack
mess-
it
We'll
on
get
there.
one
Make a
day,
mess on the
but-
computer.
I want it to be a big sound that says
We let
okay.
anything out of the box, that might be dangerous.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, for supplies, 340, up, down, keep,
I think that's fine.
I think that's fine. Seems appropriate.
all right. The town reserve fund, I bumped it to 40, and as Will noted, last year for 19, we asked for 80. The town administrator set it at 3570 with an explanation to build to 0.5% of the prior fiscal year total operating budget, to try to go slower. To me, the free cash money was there. Set it at 80,000 or whatever, 100,000 at one time, and if it doesn't get used, it just carry over. But that's, I don't get to have the final stamp of approval, so that's just my thought.
You see, if you look at other communities, typically they have, unless the community is having financial issues, it's much larger than what, even the 80,000. I've seen some communities with a couple of 100,000, and they're about the same size as us. And it's used typically.
So, now, whether that's, it's less than a $5,000 jump, but to me, it should not be an issue, but again,
I actually think its number should be higher.
think it should be higher.
I'd like to see it 50 to 60,000. That's me personally. I mean, I don't know what everybody else's thoughts
Anybody
are.
wanna make a,
But the potential implications of bond ratings and stuff that we should have those funds allocated, so to get those favorable looks.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that can eat it up really quick is, and I'll give a for instance, one year we had about 30,000. The fire department came in for the ladder truck, and they took 50% of it, just that one thing, and that was, and we were looking at the end of the year of really tight if something like that happens.
I'll look for that, there is a table, I forget, what, was it last year? I don't know if Marco did it, or if Carter did it. In one of these packets they sent out. Or maybe it's in one of the 18 book or 17 book. And you will get one of those books at that, February meeting. You get a big 5-inch binder, carry around,
Exciting.
just,
Wasting paper.
Mm-hmm.
hey, I invested in a paper company, so cut them trees. So Tony thinks it should be at 50.
50 to
Does
60.
anybody wanna make, I mean, I think
I'll
it
make
should
a
be higher,
motion for
but
75,000.
I don't think we have to make a motion. I think we can just all agree to the number.
No, I think we have to I think that's,
I think we make a motion to accept the numbers altogether.
not if we wanna change the bottom one.
I mean,
This is just Jeff's.
yeah, this is just my,
This is
my
just- this
starting
isn't
point.
like
This is
somebody
just the
Oh, okay.
starting point.
This is
You-
kinda us discussing the
You
budget.
slap me
Oh,
upside
okay.
the head and say, you don't like that number, put another number in there.
I
I
like
just
that number,
figured
put
we
another
gotta
number.
start someplace, and
No, I know, okay.
if we all had a starting point before the meeting, you can make up your minds where we want to kinda cut down on.
I think there's benefits to the town to have this higher number. It'd take a little pressure off the TA to have to go find money from other places to know that he has a higher thing, so I'd recommend 60,000.
Okay. Jeff started at, I threw out 40, okay, Tony go on 60.
Yeah, two motions.
And in the reserve fund, we can do separate. As a matter of fact, we should. Because supplies, purchase of services, that's for us. The reserve fund is for the town. I mean, we have the say-so over it, and we did take money out of there to pay Veda the first
Yep.
season, because we didn't budget for it. But again, we do that with an open
See,
meeting by
there's
vote.
a for instance for you, Tony, where the administrator says, you should go get Vadar and take it out of your emergency reserve fund. He didn't give us an option of getting money somewhere else,
That
so
was-
we had to do the transfer,
That was actually,
if we wanted Vadar.
that wasn't actually a vote by the committee that said
Yep.
we wanted to try it.
Okay.
So,
Another reason why.
yes, I'd like to keep the reserve fund separate from the committee's budget. So the three's under personal support, purchase of services and supplies. If my proposal numbers are good, I'd like a motion, and we will vote on that, and then we'll do the reserve fund. Because we have
I'll make a motion
This committee has
to-
control over the reserve fund, but that is the town's,
I'll make a motion to accept $2,995 under employee support.
Second.
Amy?
okay, any discussion?
No.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
All right, good. All right, purchase of services.
I'll make a motion for $1,580 for purchase of services, because I'm opposed to the Vadar.
No second on the motion? Anyone else?
Make a motion for purchase of services for the 2080.
Second.
All right, purchase.
Understanding Will's position, I think if we did it one more year and we decide we don't need it, then next year at this time, we just completely take it out.
Like I said, just because it's there does not mean.
Right, it
the
gets
committee
used, it doesn't have to be used and it
changes
can,
money.
it can
It's
go.
Just an option.
And I hate to have this community as the only exception, as the administrator. You are the only finance and advisory committee in the state to have access to Vadar.
I haven't checked that yet, but, okay, so, a motion and seconded for purchase of services in the amount of $2,080. Any discussion? On the motion, Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Will? You have to say it.
I have to say what? I'll say yes. If the committee wants sticking it up, I'll go along with one more year.
All right,
I'm still opposed to
mean,
it, but
If we don't use it, then next year
Right.
we just won't.
It's
All
not
right,
a
motion-
commitment to, it's not a commitment to purchasing it for next year.
Right.
It's the ability to do so.
so.
I'll make a motion to end up having $340. Let's make it a nice and right now, the right number, $350 for supplies.
Second.
Don't be so cheap with the supplies.
All right. A motion for purchase of supplies in the amount of $350. Any discussion?
just to let you know that in past years, some of the things that are in this budget, especially supplies, we have not budgeted because of the budget crunches in the past.
On the motion, Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Will,
Can I think about it? Yes.
all right. So we have the committee's budget down. I'm gonna enter these numbers as voted on the spreadsheet that Adam emailed
Okay.
and send it back to them, and hopefully I do it right, and
Okay.
all's well. All right, on the town reserve fund. I threw in a number as a starting point for $40,000. Tony mentioned 50, Will said 75, shoot for the moon. So,
I'd say shoot for the moon and let him cut back.
I actually agree with you. I don't see any reason not to. Cause the worst case scenario is they're like, no, you can have, maybe they'll back us up to 50 or 60.
Yeah.
Instead of us starting at 50 and then backing us up to 30.
That's almost the same scenario we did last year. We discussed the 80
Yeah.
as a percentage, and
Yeah.
it was less than 1%, and we looked at other communities and said, okay, that's less than 1%, let's go for that, and we'll at least get more money in the reserve than
Right,
what we've had in the past.
right.
Well, and I think I would like to hope that the TA would look at this as not a slush fund, but an opportunity when he's really in a bind, that he can send a department here. So having us right funded, I think, is important. So I think going for the 75.
like I said, my point is the existence of a savings, a reserve fund, a go-to fund for borrowing, and, because we're borrowing a lot of projects, and we're going to be, why interest rates right this minute are going up, so.
Oh, just as a side note,
75
Yeah.
is going rate, going?
75 will, is that?
75. Just as
75.
a side note to that is, if the administrator cuts it and we still feel strongly about that, when the budget is submitted to the town meeting,
Yes,
we can end up as a committee, say, this is what our budget is, this is what, and give the reasoning behind it.
All right,
Well, yeah, I just hope that we will have an opportunity to present our budget to the TA and
We do.
explain to
We
him,
will.
what our rationale, and that he'll be reasonable and understand it and agree to it.
You'll be on that Saturday, what is it, the 9th? Yeah, all the past couple of years, it's all gonna be done in one day, but it was done over several nights. They would come here, they talk to the selectmen, and then they look over, and the first year, we had to ask a couple of questions, and we were almost like shooed away. But the last couple of years, it got a little better. And last year, I asked several departments a few questions. I asked the librarian to explain something. A couple other members that were at the meetings, asked for clarification. We asked questions. We actually got a couple things changed, at the meeting. So, like I said, you will get a book, and it will be filled up with stuff like this. It's all different, like this. It'll have the selectmen, it'll have the fire department, the highway department, the police department, it'll be like that. Okay, if that's the number we're all
Have a motion.
good, and entertain a motion for that 75,000.
Make a motion for the town reserve fund to be 75,000 for FY '20.
All right, motion by Tony,
Second.
second Will, for the town reserve fund in the amount of $75,000. Everybody happy with that? Alrighty. On the motion, Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
yes,
Lee,
Yes.
Deb,
yes.
Will,
Yes.
alrighty.
I think it should be more, but that's,
Well,
75 is a good starting point.
we went back with about $5,000, but, okay.
It's a big jump
Well, if you
right
get
now.
change in
Those are the
administrative,
numbers that
It
I
should be
will,
more, but you
be
don't wanna
Right.
have to
thinking
use
and
it. It's
sending
kinda
them
one
to
of
the
those
town,
understand
they will
orders.
get them
The
budgeting
hopefully
process
by
going.
the.
We wanna build it up, but we don't wanna make it
Perfect.
that
All right.
carrot, proverbial carrot.
Right. To me,
Done.
if it's too high, then you have some really poor planning.
Did anyone get a chance to read read the email I forwarded about the codification, posting, red line stuff? So the next item on the agenda is, to discuss any changes to the town's general bylaws concerning the advisory committee. It's under Article 4. Last annual town meeting, there was a bunch of changes proposed. Although the proposed changes were included in the town warrant and given to the advisory committee prior to the town meeting, we weren't in on any discussions, or any back and forth, with those proposed changes on a bylaw that affected this committee, in many ways. And I think, they're not here and I don't wanna speak for them, there was a little bit of, we should have been, I think there was a feeling of the majority of the committee, my feeling was that we should have been consulted and not just handed it and say, here, look it over and what do you think? I think we should have been consulted, we should have been meeting jointly. But we weren't, and it's water over the bridge, and the changes didn't happen. Largely, I think, to the efforts and presentation made, the case made by Tony. So here we are. And we've been discussing this a couple of meetings, and this is on the agenda so we can look at the bylaw and make any, or suggest any changes. And I believe one of the things was if whatever we come up with, we request to be on the selectmen's agenda and see if we're in agreement with whatever we may come up with. The email that the committee received this afternoon had proposed changes,
What time is that, Joe?
and it appears that they still want, a vacancy shall occur in the membership of the advisory committee by reason resignation, death, upon moving from town or removal from the list of registered voters. The moderator shall appoint a person to complete the unexpired term of the member of whose office such a vacancy occurred. I'm not 100% sure, and I can't say for certain, because I know I wasn't at the meeting, and I didn't get a chance to email the Carter or any of the selectmen for clarification. But I'm just seeing a lot of lines throughs, and I'm seeing that underlined.
Jeff, I don't know what you're looking at, can you,
Yeah.
was that sent today?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't.
What
think-
time is it
I
sent?
don't think
'Cause
the attachment came
Yeah, I
through.
was gonna say, I don't think the attachment was on it, Jeff.
Codification. Let me check and see. Oh, actually.
That one that talks about budget.
I encourage you all to look over this, especially,
Yeah, and I
there was
did
no
look at that, but
attachment.
yeah, there was nothing.
Right.
Hmm. Well, what happened? Go up. I know I did it. was an attachment with it. Whether it got sent or not. Should have been, well, I didn't get home till about 3:30. I'll do it again and see what happens.
Okay.
I guess I should, I usually check my emails when I send them, but I didn't, cause I was kinda. There's really no attachment, there's just like a link in the email itself. It's, you can get to it if you go on Templeton homepage and go to town clerk. Oh, I know I'm missing. I just sent it again, if you.
Okay. Yep, just got it.
The email starts off, if you, and then it has, click here's a link.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't get this.
When was that sent out, Jeff? Oh, the codification?
Yes.
Oh, that, the codification document itself?
No.
No, this is the changes of the, it's not up, no, it's not the CD stuff I sent earlier. That
Oh.
was just, this is what they are proposing.
Okay, I see it.
And then you. Like you can go to the homepage and go to town clerk, but it'll take you right back to that freaking document. Certification bylaws drafts. It takes you right back to the
There it
draft
is.
one.
If you click on the red, it's like right there.
Yeah. It should take you right there.
We got it, yeah.
Yeah, I got it. It just was crazy because the directions it gave didn't work.
Oh, that's the red line.
Yeah.
And under chapter 9, boards,
Oh, this
commissions,
should be
and
chapter
committees,
9.
is
Mhm.
Article 1 is advisory committee.
So you're gonna keep
It'd
going.
be chapter
And
9.
they start with changes under 9.3. And that's the reorganization that was shown in that draft document I sent, I don't know, a couple weeks back.
So it doesn't, it took out the part of,
Just look at the first crossed out line, that's what it changes
right,
fundamentally.
right. It doesn't even make sense the way it's written. It's two incomplete sentences.
It's missing several things too.
There should be a semicolon after by reason of.
Right.
Oh.
Completely? So that was passed at the, at the May town meeting.
Like I
I'm
said,
just
I
looking-
didn't get a
Wasn't there,
chance, I didn't get a chance to talk, to email Carter or,
No, cause this
anyone.
was just posted today, right?
Page before it.
Yeah, we just got sent today, and it was posted on the site today, so.
Yeah.
uh, So, see, I don't know, and I wanted to get clarification, if that's what the selectmen or, and the town administrator Carter is planning on moving forward, you know, before they see anything, because I did inform him that we were looking at the bylaw and was gonna try to come up with something and bring it to the selectmen to agreement.
Well, I think there's probably still time to do that, right?
There's still time to do that, but I don't know if,
But if we don't move, this is what's gonna go forward.
well, just because we give it to them to put on the warrant, doesn't mean they will put it on the warrant. The selectmen have the final say of what goes on the warrant. The only way to guarantee what gets on the warrant is if you submit it as a petition.
Would Adam know? He was out in the hallway.
He's in a
Mike,
capital
I don't know.
planning meeting with Mike.
Oh, no, he was walking in the hallway.
Just a second ago?
Mhm.
Oh. No, the capital planning stuff.
I know it does say draft, so it's not a definite.
Right, no, I feel like this is a draft. This is,
Hey,
I
mean,
feel like we
believe-
can still add,
I believe
One
that the
thing for
select
sure
board
is,
is gonna
if we
be
don't
open.
come up with something and present it to them for consideration, it's, you know, definitely nothing is gonna happen.
Right.
So I suppose we could, I just wanted all the members to see that and to be aware of,
Okay.
of that. Uh, So with regard to the current bylaw, and what's posted on,
The big question is here, to me, is why change a bylaw that when you look at a whole bunch of other communities, is typically the same as ours? And I showed you, the last meeting or so, that there was, out of all the ones that I looked at, and I haven't looked at all 351 communities, I would say that after taking the cities and the towns with town councils out, you're dealing with something maybe 275, and I would say that there's still probably anywhere from 100 to 150 I haven't looked at. And when you look at most of those, I came up with 21 of them, that you could actually go to their website and see that the vacancies are filled by the Finance or Advisory Committee. I mean, in addition to that, the wording as far as the issuing of the budget in the content that we want is pertaining to our budget and not the regular budget. I've always contended that it's the duty of the administrator, along with the selectmen, to end up doing the budget. Unfortunately, after 13, this committee got stuck with doing the budget because the then sitting selectmen, I don't know if you could say refused, but they took no action, and if it wasn't for the advisory suggesting a budget, we would not have had a budget for the annual town meeting. And the data that we received from the people that we were asked, and we were stuck and not knowing how to take it, end up doing one, we were a brand-new committee at that time, we got bad information as to the debt is one issue. We got issued an email saying it was 860 when it was $1.4 million. That's $600,000, and guess what, folks? That $550,000 shortfall was exactly what we ended up seeing later in the year when we found out the information. And then everybody was pointing the fingers at this committee. Yeah? Why? Because we got bad information. And we didn't get it from the sources that we were supposed to, and the selectmen didn't step up to do their job, and we had a coordinator at that time.
Well, I think, to your point, and looking at this, so I had read through the codification of the existing bylaws with respect to the advisory committee. What this essentially does is remove all duties of the advisory committee. If you look at what's left, it basically says the selectmen will hand us stuff, and that's literally it.
Yep.
There's no responsibilities whatsoever based off of the proposed changes here.
And my thing was, when they changed it, the selectmen in 15, when they sat down, and they actually did the wording for a bylaw, they're the ones that created a conflict.
Sure.
And we've been trying to get that resolved with no budging from them, other than having that subcommittee set up, and it has, as you saw, it hasn't gone anywhere. It's fallen by the waysides. And this is the type of thing that bothers me the most about the administration and trying to take and work together. I don't see that as working together when you ask that they can get together and talk about the bylaw and the fact that the lawyer basically said there's a conflict and it should be worked out. It has not been worked out,
Right.
and this keeps coming up.
But this goes even further, Will. This
Yeah.
this effectively,
Oh,
if
yes.
passed,
Yeah,
has Templeton have an advisory committee in name only.
right.
Like, literally with no responsibilities whatsoever.
Let me
So
just,
I'm trying to figure out what the justification for this type of change would be. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
take the power away.
Well, that's exactly what it would be, right?
Let me go further on. It's been going on the last couple of years to end up taking more power from this committee, number one. Number two, you see them ending up having issues with the sewerage commission as to the payment of monies in a budget that was approved by town meeting, number two. I just went to another meeting of commissioners where the administrator is trying to take and end up getting them to take and end up doing stuff which they have already done. He's trying to tell them what to do. And they are totally opposed. I sat in that meeting and I was really surprised at what I heard. There's more in that meeting, I'll bring it up under my comments. But if you have that type of thing of a central power, basically, that's not how town government's supposed to work.
Yep.
I mean, it's pure and simple. That, you have commissioners for sewage, you have commissioners for cemetery and recreation, and they're elected officials, and they should be running their budgets and their fees, et cetera, and handing out the monies. And if the town votes their budgets, then it should be administrated the way it was voted by the town. The townspeople looked at those budgets, number one. Taking the power away from us is if you look at, and I have plenty of documentation that shows that a lot of communities actually state the bylaw for advisory. And if they don't state it, they actually have wording in there that says they will end up submitting the budget and recommending a budget at the annual town meeting.
Right.
Pure and simple. With the wording that, as you said, if that's taken out, what's the function here? You might as well not have an advisory or finance committee.
Well, one, you're mandated by law to have one.
Right.
Two, the reserve fund is under control of the Finance or Advisory Committee.
Right.
And we can take this, as you mentioned earlier, with regards to our budget, we can take this right to town meeting as a committee of the whole, if we wish. But, in the interest of trying to get a couple things taken care of, Section 1 was just changed recently, and we voted
Yes,
in
we
favor
voted
of
for that.
So I believe the wording of Section 1, and I don't think they were trying to mess with that, because that did come from Carter and the selectmen, and we did, it straightened out one thing that was in conflict with the law.
Right.
And it allowed us to be on other
It made sense.
recommending committees.
Sure.
So, Section 1, I don't have any issue with, because I voted in favor
No, I think it looks
of
good.
that. and they're not proposing. Section 2, there's a couple things here. One is, down the bottom where it said, said committee shall choose its own officers and shall serve without pay, except the chairman, who shall receive such amount as voted upon at the annual town meeting.
Mhm.
I think that needs to be removed, because the town voted to do away with all stipend salaries for elected appointed people.
Right, I saw a version where that was part of, it was
Unless
stricken.
you're on an enterprise fund, and they vote themselves
Right.
a stipend. And it comes out of, well, the electric company is basically a taxing, because it comes out from everybody, because everybody pays electric bill. The sewer commissioners, it's only if you have town sewer. So that's a thing that I think that should be removed.
I don't disagree with that.
And also, up here, for clarity, and it's, I've never had a problem really with it, because it really wasn't worth arguing about, because it usually works out that way, and it's been kind of a tradition thing, and that regarding the 30 days, because it's when this bylaw is adopted, shall, within 30 days after the such bylaw becomes effective. And when the committee back in 11 was changed from 9 members to 7, because 4 people would show up and you didn't have a quorum.
Mhm.
So they said, if we make it 7, maybe we can get 4 people to show up still, and we'd have a quorum, be able to move.
At one time, this committee was 15.
Right,
So that line, that was changed to reflect 7 members. But, and the line at, on section 1 and section 2 were changed back in 11. What wasn't changed, and again, this is what happens when you don't look at the whole, or something is done on the fly at annual town meeting and there's not enough discussion, and, you know, somebody thinks they have a quorum, but they don't, it doesn't come up. It says, at each annual town meeting thereafter, the moderator therefore shall appoint 3 members for terms of 3 years. That's reflecting when we had that 9. So it's telling the moderator, so to me, the 3 needs to go, when it should just be appoint members for terms of 3 years, once you get on a roll. So
Well,
that's-
I disagree with the 3 years, Jeff, because he can end up doing 3 years, some members 3 years, 2 years, and 1 year, depending on what the individual wants and what's needed for the committee to fill out the committee. Because if somebody resigns, he can end up filling the vacancy for only 1 year. That way, he's got a,
The bylaw states, the moderator, if, any vacancy, it's on section 3,
Yep.
when we get to section 3. Like me, I came on in August of 2015, and
Yep.
in the next annual town meeting, I had to request to be appointed
That's
again
correct.
for 3 years.
that's correct.
But, see, a moderator shall appoint 3 members for terms of 3 years.
Right, so
I think we should just,
well, what it should say is that the moderator should appoint for a term of 3 years, any open committee positions based off of their term ending, not
Right.
because of vacancies from
because
resignations.
when it first started, there was the
Yes.
stagger built in.
Yep.
So,
so wouldn't the wording be vacancies?
Except, I think vacancies, the way I'm reading it down here, is more if someone resigned. This is where someone's term comes to an end,
Right?
and to
Right.
fill
Okay.
that position,
The
someone should be
moderator.
appointed for a term of 3 years.
That's correct.
So I completely agree that the wording here
But
doesn't
the-
make any sense and it needs to be changed.
but I mean, the
that's what we're
moderator
trying to do.
appoint 3 members for terms of, I don't wanna get rid of the term of 3 years, I just, 3
Correct.
members.
Correct.
Cause if you, it just goes around and around. So if we take out of the 3, for terms of 3 years, and just members of said committee for the term of 3 years. So in other words, back in, when it
Yeah.
started, when 7, the stagger was built in.
I wonder if that's why the wording stays like that then.
See, one of the issues that
You need
what
to start.
happened
It's like a
in
legal-
13 was that there was an entire new board, very much like this here, and just like he had to do for this particular year, he had to appoint some members for 3 years,
Yes.
some for 2, some for 1,
Right.
in order to fill the committee. And I think that's the important part.
Is there any benefit for keeping some staggering there, like, so that the whole board isn't turning over at the same time? I mean, a lot of people would wanna be reinstated, but it kind of
I think that's
maintains
the
at least
reason
like
for
half the
it, yeah.
board continuity,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Well, that's true, but this last one, a number of, because quite a few members actually resigned.
Yeah.
Right,
Because
and you
of-
can't avoid that,
Yeah, that's a
but,
problem.
Right, but that's sort of an oddity, and
But so what they're saying is he built it in, the moderator built in the stagger. Because I was appointed for 3 years, but Lee was only appointed for 1,
Oh,
2.
two?
Yeah.
So when we got our emails, it said you've been appointed for X number of years. So we know, cause did you get a 2-year slot?
3, I think.
3, and I think Mike might have gotten a 2-year slot. He's not here, but.
Right.
So it was built in, so I don't know if that just comes from the fact that the moderator understands that that's how it has to go, or if it's because of this bylaw that he did it that way. Because there were 5 members that left all at once,
Yep.
and with 5 to replace out of 7.
Right, so I think that because of the anomaly of 5 people leaving at once, the reason they did the 1, 2, and 3 is it creates the
Well,
stagger,
as an
like Deb
example,
said.
if Lee, at the end of this year, he could be appointed for 3 years.
Right,
Once on balance.
Right. I mean, he doesn't have to go and appoint you for 1 year again.
no,
He can
but
appoint you.
but I believe they did the 1, 2, and 3 with the 5 new members because of, to keep that stagger.
Right,
Because if
you
you just
need
did
to have a
all 5
stagger.
new people for 3 years, in 3 years, you could come up with that same
So
situation.
I agree. So I think the basic premise of this is that for people whose term naturally expires, they should be putting in someone for a term of 3 years.
Yes.
In the case, though, where you have multiple people, and we actually should have this in the wording, then at that point in time only, there should be a staggered approach, which is what the moderator did, which I think is the right decision, but that's not,
I
as far as I
agree with
know,
that.
that's not written anywhere.
So that was like I said, that was the thing that caught my eye was, just,
So Jeff, I guess, in trying to accomplish any changes, are we trying to actually craft the wording? Or are we trying to get the general premise down and then someone will craft the wording for us?
no, we would, I mean, if we're gonna propose changes, bring them, I mean, it's ultimately gonna come down to the Attorney General, and if it gets voted at town meeting, they'll look at it and say,
It
Yeah,
should
it's
be
good,
looked
or
at
no,
by
it's
the town
bad.
council first before.
well,
even-
they generally, if it's put on,
Yep.
then town council generally reviews the warrant and looks at all these things and makes, corrections as, we miss some legal language or something.
Yeah.
I mean, but by them taking this whole duties section.
It is not always,
You don't have
always
things.
gone
You
to
replace
town
it with
council,
anything.
it is not always
So I
gone
wonder,
to
is that a
town council.
mistake?
Generally, the warrant.
Well, I wonder if they left it for us.
That's a
But
thought.
generally, the warrant, gets reviewed by town
Sometimes you
council,
can,
so,
Okay.
so you don't run into, get a town meeting floor and somebody says, hey, that's.
So if we wanted to propose a change to the appointment section, what time frame do we have left to do so?
Let's see.
So, when we were talking about the vacancies, I mean, and I know it was either the last meeting or the meeting before, we talked about the fact that if the moderator doesn't have anybody within 30 days,
Or if he doesn't have anyone, period.
or doesn't have any period, we could find that person, but then have them fill out the interest form and have the moderator appoint them. So, I don't think that the way they have it written here is horrible.
No, I think it could be phrased a little bit more like what you're saying, but I
Yeah.
agree that the moderator ultimately
Yeah.
should be the fulfiller of the position.
Right.
But if that can't happen solely through the moderator, then we should not be hamstrung as a committee. so
But I
that
don't
we're
think it
short-handed.
even acknowledges us as a committee, because that's when we would take over like as residents. I would be a resident of town saying,
Sure.
I know someone who
Yeah.
wants to come forward to be on the advisory committee, and have them go
Okay.
to,
Yeah. So
the
conceptually,
office.
again, I have no problem with, I think, what they're trying to do,
Yeah.
just as long as, at the end of the day, we can accomplish what we're trying to do as well.
Right.
So, yeah, I
Right.
agree.
Well,
For
if you look at other
instance-
communities and they say the moderator appoints, it's that moderator's responsibility. It's not the committee's responsibility to even put anybody forward. It's for him to go out and solicit. This is one of the reasons I looked at it, is we had to solicit.
Yeah.
And we end up actually soliciting from him and any documentations. And the 7 years that I've been on, we've had to do that. And because we have not gotten the moderator to take and end up appointing anybody.
Well,
He
but
has
did he
never had
have-
anybody.
Okay, but so I would prefer you rephrase that then. You can't say the moderator didn't appoint anybody, he didn't have anybody to appoint. It's not that if he had had somebody that volunteered, said, I'd like to do this, he would have appointed them. So, I think we have to be careful the way we say that, because you make it sound like, well, he just didn't want to appoint anybody, and that's
No,
not the case.
no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is that it's his responsibility to go out and get somebody.
Well, okay, is it his responsibility to
When
start?
he is doing the appointing official, yes.
He's supposed to go query for citizens, would you like to do this, would you like to do
Yes.
that? That's part of his duties?
Yeah, just the same as we would end up doing on our committee. That's why I said that I don't see the change. A lot of communities, as I said, pointed out, a lot of communities do self-appointing internally there. I mean, if we were to leave it up to him the last 7 years, we would not have had a quorum on some years.
But I mean, well, he hasn't been the moderator for 7 years. So previous moderators, I mean, they can only go to so many.
He's been the moderator for 3 years,
Okay, but that's not 7, and.
and 3 years we've had to do that.
I think that the committee should retain the right to appoint membership. Deb is on the committee by reference or,
Mike.
from Mike,
Yep.
because when we had a resignation and when Mike Vard went his way, and chose to serve on a different committee, I contacted Derek. I emailed him and said, hey, we have an opening, you have anybody? I didn't hear anything from Derek.
Mhm.
And when I was appointed, I went right after town meeting, adjourned, dissolved, and just like the bylaw says, you go up there and, he had 5 or 6 papers in his hand of people who showed interest. 2 of us were there, and he says, I got a few other people, so I'm gonna wait a few minutes. I saw one here at town meeting. In 5, 10 minutes, he goes, well, they're not here. He says, I'm not gonna chase them down. So
Right.
he appointed the 2 that were there, and, the other ones.
He's also
This
made
is
the.
why
Oh, go ahead.
I would
sorry.
like to retain, this committee to retain the right to fill its membership, because I emailed Derek, I got no response. I don't know why, I just wasn't gonna pester him, I sent him an email, you got anybody? Didn't come back with nothing. I went to Holly, any interest forms in the office? She said no.
That's what we've done in the past.
So, if we did not have the right to retain, to fill our own membership, we would be 6 instead of 7.
And oh, by the way, he has said he felt uncomfortable about putting people on because he didn't know what the qualifications are. And there is no qualifications. It's a citizen of the community, it's a cross-section of the community. There's no criteria other than being a voting member of the community.
So on section 2, removing, before we get too carried away, removing except the chairman who shall receive amount is voted upon, well, we'd take that out.
yes.
And the 3 members, just leave it for appointing for 3 years, but not the 3, and whatever the bylaw says. like I said, when the lines got, when the committee got reduced, they changed line 1 on section 1 and 2, but they didn't follow through on.
Codification document, basically, when we saw it, said that it was okay, it was written. They didn't have an issue with it. The only,
Right, but see, they didn't have an issue with it, but then when it comes to budget preparation, section 28.7 states that the administrator and selectmen are responsible for preparing the annual budget. Does this authority in any way conflict with advisory committee's duties as stated in, and this is, they're referencing the redo, in section 9-4 of the manuscript. And it says, shall be the duty of the advisory committee annually to consider the expenditures previous years, which mirrors Article 3, Section 4, where it says the administrator with the Board of Selectmen shall do it. And it's checked, make no changes. Now, I checked, and where these things are, say, revised as suggested, that's local. The part that we paid for is all the type stuff, and they gave a decision, either do this or do this. We suggest, either do this or do this. And locally, the maid, which would be the administrative selectmen,
See what they did here.
made the choice to say, make no changes. And I have it on good authority that the original, section 4 under Article 3, which is referenced in the legal answer that we got, that this committee got back in 2015, October 28th. I believe I gave a copy of this to
Yeah.
everybody. And it's, so did town meeting mean to replace the existing section 4 that was voted in 2013? Did they mean to replace that section in 2014, or did they mean to add a section 4A, or did they mean to go from 4 to 5 to 6? I think there were 6 sections, and go to make 7 sections. That's what town council asked, and he suggested that the advisory committee and the administrator reach an understanding, and if you fail to do that, then it should go to town meeting and have the people say, which do you want? How do you want it? So the original section 4 that, in 2013, that created the position of town administrator and briefly outlined his duties, it's not in the bylaws currently. You can go see it in town meeting record, the vote, annual town meeting 2013, it's Article, I think it's like 14, 15. I know in 14, the current wording was Article 20. But that original article back in 13 is gonna get, I'm told, is getting on the warrant to be put back in the bylaws. Because right now, there is no, we have no bylaw that says we created a town administrator position. We have a town meeting vote, but we don't have nothing in the bylaws. There's still a town meeting vote in 1998 that created the position of town coordinator. Except Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 28C. Or 23C, excuse me. That's town meeting vote, but it's not reflected in the bylaws. So they plan on putting the administrator position and stuff back in the bylaws, and then leave the budget thing, the way the wording is currently under Article 3, Section 4, leave that there. Which now would have, if we leave it, if this bylaw stands the way it is, it's gonna say that 2 entities have the same responsibility.
no, not on creating the budget.
No, because they've removed all that here.
Right.
No, I'm saying if this bylaw as it's written
Yep.
stays in place right
Yep.
now, if we go to town meeting and town meeting says no, leave it, then you'll have 2 entities having the same responsibility. And by the way, in 2014, this committee recommended, in their recommendations, they stated the committee favored a change to the budget process. Well, the town meeting spoke, and they said, yes, we want a change in the budget process. So, if we wanna respect town meeting vote, and we're supposed to represent the legislative body, I think we should be changing section 4. Cause I don't think we should create or present, I think this committee should be like an auditing entity, and we look at the budget and inform town meeting, hey, yeah, you're spending this money they wanna spend on this, that's a wise decision. Money gonna spend on this, we don't think that's a good idea. This article over here, it doesn't have a dollar figure in it, but it will affect money, it will cost money in one way or another, and we think it's a good thing.
Well, see, and I think I don't agree that they did, while they're trying to capture under the 9-4, they took out all these duties, is that what they're trying to have this committee do is review all articles on the warrant.
Right.
So I think you want all the articles on the warrant, but you also want more insight and not say in the budget, but review of the budget.
Well, what you wanna end up with is the creation of the budget from the administrator, initiating the process. Oh, by the way, I sent out DLS that said that the selectman, administrator, and school get together and jointly create the guidelines for the budget process.
Okay.
And it actually said at the very end that the selectmen approve the budget handed by the administrator, and then it's handed over to the finance or advisory, and they end up submitting the budget that they approve at town meeting. It could be changed from what the selectman and the administrator has put out.
Right.
And if you look at the Association of Town Finance Committee handbook, that's what it says, is that, and the law, 3916, basically says that we submit the budget to town meeting. That's our job, they can end up doing. Here's the suggested budget from the people that represent you, for you to review. Now, it gives an opportunity for the selectman and the administrator to take and make a substitute motion, like we've tried to take and end up compromising the last couple of years and doing it the opposite, where we ended up making a substitute motion, and that didn't work very well.
But what I would counter to that is that while the TA is hired, the Board of Selectmen are elected by the people to do that.
To create the budget.
Yep.
But the budget that gets submitted to towns is the body, this body's job. If you look at Mass General Law and also the Association of Town Finance, that's what it says. And if you look at all these communities, that's exactly what they say. The recommended budget is submitted by them. I mean, I spent the time to look at all these communities, and that's the conclusion that I came up with.
Is that the conclusion of a finance committee, specifically called a finance committee versus an advisory committee?
It's the same.
I will just back
The
up.
advisory gives them more responsibilities than just finance.
I'll back up a second. With regard to the changes in the red line, Tony, that you mentioned, that would give us to look at all warrant articles instead of
That's
just.
just below there?
Right, but that's already covered in the town bylaws currently, under Article 2, Section 6 of town meeting business.
Nope.
It says, all articles in any warrant for a town meeting shall be referred to the advisory committee for its consideration.
Yep.
So, if we're gonna, why would you restate that under the advisory committee? Unless they plan on removing it from town meeting and putting it down there. Also in that, October 28th, 2015, legal opinion from town council, it states, The town has a strong advisory committee responsible for advising the town not only as to financial articles, but all articles.
Yep.
And I would agree with that. With the, really, the emphasis is on the financial piece of it.
And it, like in Athol, they have a finance committee that looks at dollar stuff, and then they have a warrant
Right.
committee that looks at all other things. And some towns,
That's a big set.
the finance or advisory committee looks at everything except for, like, planning articles. That's for the planning board to make a presentation.
If you look at the overall, all the communities, I don't know if have you looked at any other communities other than ours? I mean, I spent the time looking at ours, other communities, to and see what they're doing and if we're heading down the right path. That's typically what I would end up doing. And I look at that and I say, their wording is very much similar to ours, and the recommendations for the annual budget as well as the warrant articles come from that committee. And if you look at the definition, and within the Association of Town Finance, it says the finance, advisory, and warrant are interchangeable as far as who looks at the budget. I mean, Tony, you can end up going and looking for this stuff also.
No, well, I
I'd be happy
understand.
to
No,
share
well,
it.
well, I understand that, but we have to go by what our town bylaws. If we wanna do what other communities do, whether they're right or wrong, then we need to adopt that into the town bylaws. So they may have a more effective way of doing it, but if we don't have it in the bylaws, we can't really do it that way.
All right, under Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 16, appropriation, advisory, or finance committees. Every town whose valuation for the purpose of apportioning the state tax exceeds $1 million shall, and any other town may, by bylaw, provide for the election or the appointment and duties of appropriation, advisory, or finance committees, who shall consider any and all municipal questions for the purpose of making reports or recommendations to the town, and such bylaws may provide that committees so appointed or elected may continue in office for terms not exceeding 3 years from the date of appointment or election. In every town having a committee appointed under authority of this section, such committee, or the selectmen if authorized by bylaw of the town, and in any town not having a committee, the selectmen shall submit a budget at the annual town meeting. So, we could have a bylaw, and the selectmen certainly could put one in there that specifically says they will submit the budget, and that satisfies the Mass General Law. So the law that covers Finance Committee covers this committee. And what it boils down to is, to me, and this is my opinion, and the most recent vote of town meeting said they want the town administrator with the Board of Selectmen to prepare the budget. Do we want to, I don't want to do like the selectmen have done recently and flip them off and ignore their vote. This bylaw was put here in 1951. I've looked at other towns that have the same wording. One town was 1936. Other towns have been in the 50s. Ashburnham, I looked at Ashburnham, and they've just recently did some changes to theirs because they used to call their advisory committee advisory board, much like Templeton did, even though our bylaw and the Mass General Law said advisory committee. Ashburnham's bylaw now says advisory committee. They have a pretty good section in their bylaw about the advisory, in that they cited a law that lets the committee have a hearing under a Mass General Law, which is, they can bring people in and swear them under oath, and it references a Mass General Law that allows them to do that. some of the committees, some of the communities that are used as comparison communities. Some have similar bylaws, but a lot of them, they have different ones. They have changed because the Division of Local Services, even in the ATFC handbook and stuff, it says that, you know, I will just ask you all, do you wanna take the time to look over the town's budget and present it to annual town meeting? Do we all have, do you have, I mean, that's a lot of time.
So, and I think I won't speak for everyone, but I think I had heard that we were all in agreement with that. But going back to the area that was, you know, stricken out here in the duty section, I don't see where there'd be a conflict with what I think we're all agreeing on at all. Other than to essentially remove, you know, any outstanding duties from the committee. Because to your point, you think that the rest of it might mean that they want us to look at it. There's nothing there that states that we have to do anything.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing left if that goes through. So you might as well not even have one, other than by MGL, you have to. So if everyone just reads through the red section, is there anything there that you think is inappropriate to the committee the way that we believe that our function should be? And I don't see anything that would be in conflict with that, conflict with what the TA should be doing, or what we believe the TA should be doing, or conflict with what the select board should be doing. So I'm not sure why this is crossed out.
I agree with you.
One item might be, let's see, and the one thing that I see, it shall be the duty of the town administrator in conjunction, this is Article 3, Section 4, the Board of Selectmen to consider expenditures and develop a budget for the ensuing fiscal year of the several boards, officers, committees of the town, as provided by them, the boards, officers, departments, in such form and detail as prescribed by the town administrator.
Mhm.
Now, when you go down to the advisory committee, it shall be the duty of the advisory committee to annually consider several boards, officers, communities of the town, as prepared by them, those boards, departments, in such form and detail as may be described by said committee. So,
If you take the next line though, where it says essentially what we're going to do is add another column to compare and contrast what was done by the TA and the select
Right.
board. So I see what you're saying, but I think the next sentence takes care of that. Because you're correct, we're not trying to overstep our bounds, but with that next sentence, I think that gives us the authority to say, look, this is what was presented to you by the TA and the select board, this
Right.
is what we believe, and if you strike that all out, again, we're left with nothing.
If you look at the 16 and 17 budget, it was an omnibus budget. On the upper level, it gave the detail, and it actually had in one particular case, it had the advisory's recommended amounts for the budget. I mean,
that's what that line
all I'm
says.
looking at here is, end up getting a seat at the table with the administrator and the selectmen, come to an agreement. This is working together, folks,
Right,
You
as
don't
a
have to
meeting and
convince
saying,
us.
here's the guidelines,
Right.
and this is what it is. If we end up having a meeting all at the beginning for the guidelines and stuff, at the beginning, that helps alleviate issues of what the guidelines are, number one. Because he could end up saying he wants a guideline of 2%, where if we see the economy as a group and say, well, I think he's wrong, and we should end up having level funded, then that's the type of issue that should be worked before the budget's even done. And that's when you sit down at the table and say, okay, here it is. The same as what we have at the upper level in government, when it does work.
Yep.
I mean, that's typically what I see. And when it comes, when we have that, that's the beginning point. Once they get their budgets, and we go through the review process, and I think it should be separate, because we have different questions, and there's always not enough time allotted, then you end up saying, okay, here's what we see that budget should be. If I ask a question from, I don't know, just a department head about an expense, and I feel that he hasn't justified the expense as a committee member, and I mean, we all agree that, hey, listen, he didn't justify the $15,000 for this widget here, we could probably get away with a cheaper widget, then that's what we would end up recommending. That's what I would ask, and saying, okay, do you need the $15,000 for that? Is there a less expensive way that will get the job done? And if there is, then I would hope he would change the budget, or we would end up recommending the cheaper price to look out for the citizens of the community. I mean, that's how I view it. I don't know how you folks are gonna think and end up doing it, but that's.
I agree, and I think that, again, the items that were redlined speak directly to that. That's what those responsibilities are. So again, I'm not sure why they're redlined.
Like I said, my thing is, if the town administrator tells the department, says, well, like, they emailed the form, and it's basically a spreadsheet. And it says, do this, don't change formulas, don't do that.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the form that he wants to get it in. If this committee, with the bylaw that says it now, says, well, we want the highway budget in this format, and if that format conflicts with the administrator, what's a department head gonna do? Let me see, okay, I'll make it this way for them, and then I'll send it to the advisory committee like this.
I don't think we should do that.
And to me, I mean, we have 2 sections of our general bylaws that say, prepare your budget in this format, and now we say, we want it this way.
So, and for me, what I would say is I think that reconciling those two things is very important. I think doing so by essentially taking away all committee.
No, I don't wanna gut it.
Right, so I think there's a smarter way to do that.
I think the way to do it is what Paul DeRensis suggested. We get together with the selectmen and the administrator
Yep.
at an open meeting and say, look, what's the format gonna be? If we agree on it, then that's what we will do. But, I mean, there's certain things that they can't take away from the committee, they're covered, by law. And after February 27th, we'll get the book, and they should go over the warrant. But they will definitely do the budget book, and we will get it. Let's see, February 27th. Yeah, the budget and the warrant. It'll be a draft warrant, but we will get that on the 27th. According to the bylaw right now, we have the right to request, we'd like it. Free access to books, records, everything. But we will definitely get that on the 27th. Like I said, you'll get the book, and it'll be 300-something pages.
I mean, I
like
think
that,
we have to
and the
make it-
draft warrant. And we'll have between then and the March 9th, individually, I think we meet once, maybe, as a committee. We could meet to go over that and to write down questions, on anything you might see. And then that Saturday, you gotta take the time to look through it and try to come up with individual questions. And after that, we will meet. I believe the schedule says they're gonna try to get us, it says drop dead date to give, the approved warrant to us April 8th. The bylaw says we have to have it by April 10th. That's like I'm just counting Saturdays and Sundays, everything. It's like 33 days before the annual town meeting.
I think that's reasonable.
On 10/18/2017, Paul Grubb made this presentation to the selectmen about the budget planning process. And talked about that. And it was like, when it was presented, there was no questions from the selectmen, no nothing. I mean, I have copies of this if somebody wants it. I can tell you the copies, I believe.
I think at that time, that was when, it was 17, right?
Yep, and that's when we were trying to.
Well,
to
they were
work
on
the-
their kick of, we're the superior board,
Yep.
and we're elected, and you're just appointed. Which,
That's
if you call
that's
them on
true.
that now, they backpedal a little bit. I don't know what the deal was, why that was, if somebody got a hair in their back pocket and they, decided to assert their authority or their perceived authority, I don't know. But that's, and when we went there, Paul did,
Okay,
we asked for 30 minutes, and we did that.
so I think we need to decide their proposed changes, what we don't like, and we need to bring it to them. Like, for example, I think we should uncheck all that red. That should be rejected as a change.
Okay, so let me get some notes.
Do we have to wait, there's a meeting in January about this process, is that the
January
meeting that we go to for this?
January 15th, well, they're giving a presentation,
On the 15th?
January 15th. I'll double check here, but I'm pretty sure the schedule is January 15th, yeah, cause
So that's just a presentation, that's not even time for us to go in and be like, no, we don't like this?
we can certainly attend as a committee and speak up. I could post a meeting, and so we could sit in the corner and vote on things. Wow. Let's see.
We should consider
January-
that.
They don't have it in, I thought they had it on listed on.
No, I
there.
saw it, I think you're right, on the 15th.
Yeah, I think it
It was an email, I for sure saw it.
And, let's see, March
I
29th.
mean, would it hurt to send the chairman of the board of selectmen an inquiry as to why they think this is a reasonable approach?
Say it, and I will make it so, number one.
Would you please send Mr. Caplis an email, tell him that we obviously have some concerns with the way they want to change the advisory committee bylaws, and we would like an opportunity to discuss their reasoning, and would like to come to a select board advisory committee agreement as to what, if any changes should be made.
Changes,
I do think that well, it may not be the best, is when each board presents, or each department presents their budget, it should be done at the same time in case, so everybody hears the same thing. Meaning, they tell the select board one thing, they may be more in depth with them than what they would be with us, because we advise the select board, they know the select board is really the one who's gonna approve their budget. Even if we recommend against it, it's really up to the select board. So if we do it all together, everybody hears the same information, and we can have discussions, ask questions based on that.
I'll watch this meeting to get all your,
Okay.
email Chairman Caplis concerning the proposed Board of Selectmen changes to the advisory bylaw, and we would like to be on the agenda for a meeting to discuss this.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, that's a good way to paraphrase it.
I'll watch the meeting, if I miss
Okay.
something, I'll include it in the email.
I like this comment about, from DLS, they put this out, annual budget process, and I'll just read one thing. Formulation of the initial budget recommendation by the town administrator, or town manager, administrator, finance director, or finance committee, depending on the governing structure. And one of the things I looked at, there is a number of communities that when you look at their governing structure, they actually end up having documents about the budget process, guidelines, et cetera, and it comes from the finance committee. I got a
So-
whole bunch of stuff.
So isn't it really the role of the town administrators to control the town budget once it's submitted? He manages the town, right?
Once it's,
They-
once it's, approved by town meeting, yes.
Yeah.
He doesn't approve the budget, it goes to town meeting.
Right, but he doesn't approve it, but he makes the recommendation based on his years of experience, and in this case, a couple years here with the town. I think you gotta let the guy do the job that he's paid to do at some point.
Okay, so,
Is he really aware of, everything in your town?
No, but that's why we're there to check
Exactly.
over and look at what he's done.
Right.
But it's not our job to do it. We should just have that ability to line item and
Exactly.
go through and ask questions.
Yep.
Yes, yes.
Because the initial budget should come from him,
Yes,
from the departments through him,
yes.
and then reviewed by them, selectmen, and then us, and we input to the legislative body. I mean, that's,
I concur with that, Will.
yeah.
so, our first meeting in January is January 3rd.
Yeah.
January 15th is a Tuesday,
Mhm.
so we will be meeting on the 17th. So whatever we get out of, and like I say, they have the warrant opening on February 13th and closing it on March 4th, even though they can reopen it and put something on, take something off, and redo it. As long as they have a final warrant to us by April 10th, which is a Thursday, I believe, that, that's why, which I believe they were getting it to us on a Monday. No, the 11th would be a Thursday. See if they would have to post that in advance. And I have a proposed date for our pre-town, but that will be on the next agenda. So let's see. Regards to the bylaw, Tony requested or made a suggestion that we do some clarification in this and that. My question is, does this committee want to do that before we do anything further with the bylaw? Or do we wanna go through the sections and look at anything else this evening?
Well, I think that one paragraph is the big sticking point with most everything. I mean, the one about appointing who appoints the vacancies,
I would
think we're
just like to
talking
see this, I think
semantics.
the committee should retain the right to do that, because, I don't wanna go, you know,
I agree with it, but I think you're starting to get into a semantics issue where we go find somebody, okay, just go to Holly and fill out this form, you let Derek know, or the moderator, whoever it would be at the time, there's someone there, we have an opening, you know. The only
It's true,
time,
because your main argument was that the moderator didn't respond to you, and that's an issue with the moderator, not with the process.
well, I have another issue, but I'm not gonna say it.
Well, I think, so I don't wanna have, the look of impropriety, so I think we could word in such a way that, I think it makes sense for the moderator to have the first go at that. But again, at the end of the day, I don't think that the committee should be hamstrung if the moderator cannot, or for whatever reason will not fill the position,
Right.
then the committee should have the capability to vote in somebody.
Because.
So I
we-
would just say, give it, I don't know, maybe a 30-day or whatever time
It was
period.
30 days
think it
beforehand.
is.
Yeah, and after that, then the committee All this wording should fall right back to what it is now.
But this committee has always given the moderator
Mhm.
the first shot.
Has it ever been in writing, though?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah,
just because I'm not seeing it here, but okay.
But yes, we always, because, like I said, if people turn in
Yeah.
during the year request forms, and maybe they didn't make annual town meeting for some reason, but they're still interested, or if they see there's an opening on the committee, they give a notice to Holly. If they have one, then this committee has historically given, say, hey, talk to Derek, and hey, we have somebody, can you appoint them?
Yeah.
But we've always gone, the committee that I've seen over the years has always gone to the moderator, and if he doesn't, have anybody, there's no forms, it's a little better now, because it will get put on the website for an interest form, hey, anybody, and it's talked about at the meeting, and the meetings are all recorded now on a regular basis and can be seen quick. We don't get much newspaper coverage anymore, not that we got a lot, the committee got a lot before, but, so it's just been, start with the moderator, go to the selectman's office, and if it's a dead end, then we go here.
So can we recommend that, again, the purple cross out here, remain, and just preface it with?
Here's a
in
question.
lieu of the
Are they
moderator
aware
finds something?
of what we've had to go through the last 7 years and what the process is? My gut tells me that they don't even know that we have gone to the moderator and to the selectman's administrator for the paperwork to see if anybody has submitted
What do you mean?
before we go out.
Who is they?
Board
Selectman.
of Selectmen.
So that's what I'm saying, if we propose, if we propose back to.
I mean, if they're recommending that, Tony, then that change, then maybe they don't see that.
That is a question that we could bring up if we get a joint meeting with them. And I'll look in, let's see. We meet on January 3rd, so January 2nd. When's the Board of Selectmen's meeting?
I guess I'm kind of stubborn, and I just don't see the difference of, if the moderator doesn't have anybody, we find somebody and just have them go through the process of filling out the form. Having the moderator appoint that person that we found is any different than us voting that person in.
That doesn't take into, I would hope would be an extremely rare instance where for whatever reason the moderator just sits on their
Second,
hands.
Jeff.
And again, hopefully that would never happen, but if for whatever reason, or I can't even think of what other reasons, but.
Okay, I understand
end of
that.
the day,
I understand
yeah.
that.
And I wanna think beyond, just like when I consider things for the committee, I think beyond me being here.
Yeah.
I think beyond Derek, being the moderator, someone
Absolutely.
else being a moderator,
Yep.
cause, maybe Derek really likes it, at some point in time, maybe he might say,
Sure.
and we get another, and we've had some really good moderators. But I know of at least one that was, well, he was a little wishy-washy on some things at town meeting. I mean, I have no problem with Derek. I mean, I have a few issues with some things, but when he does, and I talk to him all the time especially after town meetings. But he did a really
I
good
think he
job
does a
at the
great job.
special.
Mhm.
I mean, he did a solid to a resident. He gave him,
Yep,
and
absolutely.
I told him, I said, I thought that was, the right thing, because it was a good thing to do, and I thanked him for doing it. He does a good job, and he's gotten better, because I think he's more comfortable. So,
So to your question, Jeff, is whether or not we should go through this anymore, personally, I think that we, and again, certainly anyone else can comment, but I think we kind of have figured out what we want these to say. But I don't think we can do much more at this point in time until we get that meeting with the board.
yeah, it's,
So as far as pushing any further tonight, we can, but I'm not sure we'll get anywhere, unfortunately.
and I know there's one train of thought that, well, a couple people could sit down and just, bang this out, but
Sure.
it would end up having to come back to a committee anyway,
Mhm.
2 committees. So, we'll see. 'Cause me and
Well,
Mr.
we always have the ability to make a substitute motion and recommend, if they recommend something that we don't agree to, is make a substitute motion to
I'd
what
like
we
to see
think
that
it
as a
should be.
last resort, though.
Right.
Completely agree.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we all agree with you,
Yep.
but to your point earlier,
Yeah.
we want to be working together.
I don't disagree with that, I
So,
don't disagree, but I'm just saying, that's your,
Yeah,
I mean, that's your last
Completely agree.
option. I don't like to think and do that, but if you have to, you have to.
Again, if they're gonna make these kind of changes, they should be, we should be in on the deal. It
Well,
shouldn't
we
just
are
be
in on the
saying-
deal, whether they tried or not, we're in on it now, and we see it, and we're gonna participate.
No, I mean, ahead of the time saying, hey,
I
these are what we were
understand.
doing.
No,
you
no, I know, but
what we're
we got them
proposing,
now, we're on it now, so.
So,
I mean, this is essentially what they tried to do at the last town meeting.
Yes, it's been the last couple of years, I guess.
Yeah, we just, I guess I'd like to just I just
So,
wanna get their understanding of why they think this is effective and why they wanna take certain, not authority, but,
Yes, authority, responsibility.
responsibility, I think, away from the committee, cause this committee really doesn't have authority.
so we meet on the 3rd of January. The selectmen will meet, they have a meeting scheduled on the 9th. And then, like I said, the next one would be the codification review. And then we would meet 2 days later on the 17th. Maybe we can get on the 9th.
Yeah, I think if you email them
And,
within the next 48 hours, I think we can.
well, I won't call him tonight, but I could call him tomorrow.
No, just send an email.
I'd like to call John once in a while,
Oh, all right, then.
ruffle his feathers.
Call him now,
We
put him
have
on
it-
speakerphone.
We have John and I have we have a unique way of getting, so if we could get on the 9th possible, then we might have something. And then we go to the 15th and see what they say, and if we, I mean, individually, we can speak, or we can speak as a whole, of why this, and this, and blah, blah, and really get. And then we meet on the 17th. So,
So one of the last topics is agenda for next meeting, correct?
yes.
Okay.
So, we'll send this email to John and, try to get us on the 9th meeting with the selectmen. And since we meet on the 3rd, we can, if we wanna brainstorm questions or whatever, an approach, we can do that. So is that the wish, we'll, before we make any hard changes or any votes, go there and get that first? Take that
Yes.
approach?
Yeah.
I mean, I know the first couple articles, the little things is, we're, I think, pretty agreement on that, and,
I mean, I think on the 3rd that we, again, can discuss, we think that these changes shouldn't be made, or whatever, and why, and then
and
we'll
like I
bring
said, that red line
forward.
thing, they just put it today, so
Hmm.
it didn't give people much time.
Yeah.
Even if you would've got it at 3:30, you would still
Possible.
didn't have
They
a lot
just
of
think
time
that
to look
it's,
at it.
What's underneath it covers it all, just not
Uh,
as.
For the, where is it, for the,
Okay, our next meeting is January 9th, 2019. Happy
January.
New Year, hoo-yah.
third,
January 3rd.
yeah.
Right?
I thought you said it's the
I mean, 3rd, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I got selectmen on my, January 3rd, advisory committee. January 9th, board of selectmen. All right, committee members' request for agenda items for the next meeting.
Oh, you gonna approach the moderator now, or still wait?
I emailed him, and he said, I believe I forwarded that email to everybody.
I
He
think
said
he
it's
wasn't,
fine, but
he's
we're
fine,
having
but there's
that
certain
meeting
days that he's
and-
not available.
Yeah, he said he would come, he'd gladly
Yeah.
come, but they're having that public meeting, and he just thought it was, everybody was in one room at the same time. They could just cover everything.
I don't think that's not the same. I don't believe that what we were talking about was the same as what they're gonna be talking about. At least I don't believe so. About a handbook for the town.
The thing
Jointly
was,
with him.
if he would come here and speak with the advisory committee about town meeting.
And the handbook, I'm talking about. Not town meeting, the handbook. For folks, so they can end up seeing what the town meeting's all about. Emotions, et cetera.
There's a meeting for that too.
Yes, that's,
Yeah.
The 29th.
that's the 29th.
Yes,
January 29th.
yes,
Oh, that's what he's gonna cover?
Mhm.
yes.
I was covering a lot of that. Like I said, I emailed Derek, and he said he was glad to come, but,
That's what I was doing, was trying to put them
Yeah.
all
we
on
already
my
had that meeting scheduled.
thing. The 29th of January?
Mhm.
I believe it's January 29th, but don't take my word for it, 'cause I'm a senile old man sometimes.
But it's not on
Jeff, if you wanna add a BES update, for next,
Okay, for January 3rd, you wanna do the,
yeah,
elementary school update?
Yep.
Mike's not here, so I'll put it on anyway, a capital planning update. We'll do the minutes. Advisory bylaw, just,
What about the codification thing that they just, the cutouts, you might want, since we just got it,
advisory
discussion there.
bylaw slash codification.
Yeah.
What the hell?
29/19 at 6:30.
Baldwinville Elementary School capital plan update, advisory bylaw codification. What am I gonna put on? The countdown for town meeting. Anyone have anything else as far as agenda items? Alrighty. I know what I put on. Answer from Chairman of Board of Selectmen if we get any.
Okay.
So we can discuss that. All right? And that should be it. Member comments?
none,
Tony?
none.
None. Amy?
I'm good.
Lee?
I'm all set, thanks.
Yep,
I am all set, thank
you are
you.
good. I have a couple. Mr. Spring?
I have some.
Okay.
Take a hint.
As you heard, I went to the cemetery and recreation meeting. For some stuff that I was interested in. While I was there, I heard some more disturbing news as far as I was concerned. The fourth 30-year employee is leaving, with a fifth coming up. There's something wrong in management when you have that many long-term employees, you lose them. That's my comment. You can end up looking into that. I talked to the individual. I'm not sure he wanted me to share his thoughts. But there was a lot of discussion around,
That's the foreman of the Building and Grounds Department, because they're advertising for that.
that's for cemetery. So I'm thinking it's cemetery is the buildings and grounds.
That's-
He's the foreman or for that particular department. After all these years, I mean, I dealt with him, the man was extremely, I mean, I fed back to the commissioners that we needed an employee such as this individual. I worked with him on getting a monument and getting information for him and stuff. And the past, Alan as well as him. And I found them to be very, very helpful to town's community, as far as members of the community. I mean, that's what you expect from somebody that's working for you as far as dealing with the community in general. I mean, I don't know, I don't think it's because I'm on something or I'm here in town. I got the general feeling that he does that for everybody. The other thing is, I heard a lot of feedback from the commissioners on an individual that they're not happy with some of the things that they've been I don't wanna use too harsh words. They've been steered to as far as their operation. They're elected officials, and they run the cemetery and recreation as far as what's to be done at those entities. It's not up to the administration or the selectmen that they can end up doing that per se. And I didn't get that feeling from the conversations I heard. You can go check this out. I don't know if they'll share that with other folks, but I got that impression from them, and that's the comment as far as members' comments, as far as what I see. I don't feel that it's working as well as it should with other departments, and I made that earlier statement that it should, and it's not just this committee and one issue. It's multiple committees or commissioners in conflict. To me, that's not how it should be run. Day-to-day operations of the town hall and certain entities, yes, but for elected officials, absolutely not. I mean, I'm gonna leave it at that.
I just have a couple of things. I was looking at the budget versus actual, the last one that we received for October. There was a special article back in 17 for a dump body. It was specific for a dump body for a 10-wheeler 1984 Mack. It showed as spent, as money had been spent. I sent an email, I wanted to go over and look at the truck. I wanted to see what we put a new dump body on. That dump body was not bought. That money was spent on another thing. And it was spent towards the new 6-wheel dump truck that the town appropriated money for. So, and I put this on the town administrator and the selectmen. Town meeting was asked for money for a dump body for a 1984 Mack 10-wheeler. And a dump body for a 10-wheeler is bigger than one for a 6-wheeler. Town meeting, and I voted for that item. I didn't think it was a good idea to put a new body on that old of a truck, but that's what they wanted to do, I voted for it. When town meeting appropriates money for something, it should be used for that or not spent, or they should be asked specifically we're not gonna do this, so we'd like to take this money and do this. That wasn't done. That's, you wanna know why people don't wanna go to town meeting? That's it. Town meeting was asked to appropriate $160,000 to buy a dump truck, a six-wheel dump truck with a wing, a plow, and something. If you're gonna buy a truck without a dump body on it, you're not buying a dump truck, you're buying a cab and chassis. They voted, and again, I voted the same way, I voted for this, $160,000.
Yep.
If you needed more money, then you should have asked for more money. The budget versus actual for a long time showed that $158,800 was spent on the truck, and there was $1,200 left, and suddenly the $1,200 was gone. $800 and something was used to buy safety items for that truck. To me, that would be chalk blocks, triangles, safety flares, things that are required by law to have in a commercial vehicle. That I don't have so much of a problem with, but apparently $300 and something was classified wrong, and it's gonna be reclassed, and I think put back to show that it's extra. But my thing is, town meeting was asked for money, and they appropriated it to buy a certain item. They didn't say, do what the hell you want with this money. They said, you need $17,500 for this dump body. They voted to buy that. And the selectman and town administrator went and used it for something else, and that's a slap in the face to town meeting, to the residents, in my opinion. And that's part of, I believe that's part of the reason why people just don't wanna go to town meeting anymore.
That's right.
The other item I saw was, we passed a new bylaw, Veterans Advisory Board. That bylaw states that that board is supposed to meet at least quarterly. The bylaw wasn't approved until August of 2018, but the Veterans Advisory Board has not met one time. I went back and looked on the town meeting calendar. There's not a meeting posted
No.
for it.
Right.
I looked under the Veterans Advisory Board. They have one member. It shows one member, Mike Yvard. Where in the hell is this advisory board? They're appointed by the selectmen. The selectmen shouldn't, and I went, open committees, openings on committees, the Veteran Advisory Board is not listed on there. If they don't have people, how are you gonna get people if you don't let people know there's openings? They're violating the bylaw. To me, that's on the veterans agent, and that's on the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator. And it's a violation of the bylaw. And I hope they go through with what it says in the codification, that the fine for violating a bylaw goes from $20 to $300. That's not a lot of teeth, but $300 is a lot more money to come up with than 20. Because 20 is just,
But the problem there is, never had been enforced.
you would have to sue the town, take them to court to pay that money. That's my comments for this evening. And this advisory board thing, and the appropriations, I'm looking really ticked at that, because they're gonna have a meeting, and I'm gonna bring that up. I'm gonna point it right in their face. They wanna know why people don't wanna go to town meeting, why people have given up going to selectmen's meeting, why a pre-town meeting is like one person sitting there, maybe two. It used to be a packed room. I'd go to
Right.
them.
Yeah,
There'd be selectmen there, the town coordinator was there, there were a lot of residents there, and they would ask questions.
When I
In a
first
few
got-
years,
yeah.
it was almost like the advisory committee at the time was less than stellar, and it was, almost like they were just sitting there, well, yeah, whatever. But people went, and people don't go now. I know some people watch because it's recorded and it's reliable recording. But town meeting, you can't participate, watching town meeting. You have to go to town meeting. And people vote for something, and then they find out that you asked me to spend money for this, I gave it to you, and then you go and spend it on something else without asking me. And they can say, oh, we noted that in the voter's guide, oh, we had it in the summary. I'm sorry. The town meeting official record from the town clerk shows the motion. Motion was for $17,500 for the ten-wheeler body for a 1984 Mack. The motion that people voted on was for a new six-wheeler for the highway department, dump truck. A dump truck has a body. In the budget book, there's estimates for a body for a ten-wheeler. There's estimates, pictures, vendors' names given for a dump body for a six-wheeler. Because you go to a truck, you go to a dealer, you buy the cab and chassis, you send it to a third party, they outfit it, they put the plows, the hydraulic system, all that stuff on there, and they set it down, and that's the price. They needed more money for a six-wheeler dump truck because they didn't ask for enough money to cover a state bid. Well, then they should have come back like they did for the police station and other projects and asked for more money, and they didn't. And it's on tape that, well, we got 160 for the six-wheel dump truck, and we got 17.5 from the dump body. December of 2017, I think, selectmen's meeting. Well, it's on tape. I went and tracked it down and I saw it, and that ticks the hell out of me. And
I
that's
find
my
that very
comment
interesting, Jeff,
for this
because
evening.
in selectmen's meeting, if you watch the selectmen's meeting, a department head will come in, and on one and this is not from me, this is from somebody in my household, that basically said is, I watched that meeting, the person said 50,000, the administrator said 55, which gives it more money, that's fine. But, that's what we should be doing. Don't be changing the numbers, up or down or whatever. Get the right number and get it into the budget, and if you don't have enough money, and I have to agree with Jeff, come back. And the same thing for, you're talking about a budget that was recommended, was a sewage budget. It had raises in it. Those individual non-union persons have not got their raises yet. That's wrong. And it was stopped in that office. Not by the sewage commissioners, it stopped in that office right there. That's where it stopped. That's wrong.
All right.
And make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. I haven't seen word. Oh, by the way, before we go, Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Merry
Happy New Year.
Happy
There's
holidays.
no happy holidays.
One comment before you
No
get,
motion?
Too
No, there's
late.
a motion on the floor, on the table,
Can I-
to adjourn.
can I have it under discussion?
No.
On favor.
Yes, you have a motion, and it's this discussion, Mr. Chairman.
Discussion on adjourning the meeting? Whether
Yes,
we adjourn or
yes.
stay?
I'm
You wanna
going to
stay?
let you know that because you're adjourning it, I may not end up participating very much. I have some things coming up where I may not be able to end up making some of these meetings. I have some issues, as Lee is
Yep.
aware of.
There'll be faster meetings.
Yes, it will be. But you,
Well, we certainly wish you well with, well.
but you won't get the controversy and the pushback. This should be trash and pushback and everything else, so that you come down to one final thing, and that's.
What you missed? Nice and quiet down there, huh?
Okay. Can we
All right,
vote?
motion to adjourn,
Shouldn't be.
made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody want to stay? Yes.
Just well.
Go ahead.
Adjourn.